out of the red corner, an undefeated mixed martial artist holding a perfect professional record.
What's up, everybody? Crossover MMA, back in here with another video. This will be my full UFC Paris breakdown and prediction. Timestamps will be in the description. Without further ado, let's get right into it. First fight, we have Bolaji Oki versus Chris Duncan at lightweight. Bolaji Oki is 28 years old, 9-1, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He's 5'10" with a 73-inch reach and a 60% finish rate, and he's the -190 favorite. Chris Duncan is 31 years old, 11-2, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He's 5'10", with a 72-inch reach and a 62% finish rate, and he's a +160 underdog. In this fight, I think Duncan will try to mix things up with the grappling and the striking. I don't think he's going to find much success in the grappling, as Oki has a 83% takedown defense. I see this fight mostly staying on the feet, and Duncan doesn't move his head a lot, and he takes a lot of shots. I do think this fight will be very competitive, but I'm going Oki by decision. Next fight, we have Nora Cornolle versus Jacqueline Cavalcanti at women's bantamweight. Nora Cornolle is 34 years old, 8-1, 5-0 in her last 5 fights. She's 5'7" with a 67-inch reach and a 78% finish rate. She's also the +155 underdog. Jacqueline Cavalcanti is 27 years old, 7-1, 5-0 in her last 5 fights. She's 5'8" with a 70-inch reach and a 38% finish rate. She's the -195 favorite. I really like Cavalcanti, but I hate that she's taking this fight on such short notice. She just fought 3 weeks ago. I think Cornolle will have a power advantage, and I think she'll land the heavier shots. Cavalcanti does have a path to victory with her footwork and her movement, but with that said, I'm going Cornolle by decision. Next fight, we have Daniel Barez versus Victor Altamirano at flyweight. Daniel Barez is 35 years old, 16-6, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He's 5'6" with a 66-inch reach and a 59% finish rate. He's also the -145 favorite. Victor Altamirano is 33 years old, 12-4, 2-3 in his last 5 fights. He's 5'8" with a 70-inch reach and a 38% finish rate, and he's the +115 underdog. Barez hasn't fought in over a year, and Altamirano has been in there with the better competition. He's also younger. Barez definitely has some power in his hands, which is always a factor at flyweight because so few guys have big power in their hands at 125. But for me, I'm thinking I'm gonna go with the experience and the competition that Altamirano has faced. And I think he's gonna get it by decision. I think he redeems Mexico for the performance at UFC 306. Next fight, we have Daria Zhelezniakova versus Ailin Perez at bantamweight. I apologize for that name. But Daria is 28 years old, 9-1, 4-1 in her last 5 fights. She's 5'9" with a 78-inch reach, a 50% finish rate, and she's a +210 underdog. Perez is 29 years old, 10-2, 4-1 in her last 5 fights. She's 5'5" with a 66-inch reach, a 42% finish rate, and she's a -260 favorite. I think Perez is going to implement the grappling in this fight straight away. I do think it's her smartest path to victory. If Daria can keep this fight on the feet, I think she'll win the fight. However, I just think the grappling of Perez will be too much, so I'm going to go with Perez by decision. Next fight, we have Taylor Lapilus versus Vince Morales at bantamweight. Lapilus is 32 years old, 20-4, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He's 5'6" with a 73-inch reach and a 42% finish rate. Morales is 33 years old, 16-7, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He's 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. Lapilus has a long reach at bantamweight, especially for his height. I really do like his striking. He doesn't have a lot of power in his hands, and he's much more of a point fighter. I know Morales is taking this fight on a little bit of short notice. So with that said, I'm going Lapilus by decision. Next fight, we have Ludovit Klein versus Roosevelt Roberts at lightweight. Ludovit Klein is 29 years old, 22-4-1, He's 4-0-1 in his last 5 fights. He's 5'7" with a 73-inch reach, 63% finish rate, and he's a -700 favorite. Roosevelt Roberts is 30 years old, 12-5, 2-2-1 in his last 5 fights. He's 6'2" with a 73-inch reach and a 53% finish rate. He's also the +500 underdog. So I really like Ludovit Klein. He's a very well-rounded fighter, good on the feet, solid grappling skills. I think he's a better overall fighter here. And I also think he's a dark horse in the lightweight division. So for me, I'm gonna go Ludovit Klein by TKO. Next fight, we have Oumar C versus Duncan at light heavyweight. C is 28 years old, 10-0. He's 6'4" with an 83-inch reach and an 80% finish rate. He's a -450 favorite. Jung is 30 years old, 2-3 in his last 5 fights. He's 6'4" with a 79-inch reach and a 62% finish rate. And he's a +350 underdog. She is a big favorite. Jung, in my opinion, is a bit reckless and doesn't have the best defense. He gets hit a lot and he tries to brawl. So with that said, I think C is gonna have some success and the fight will end on the ground. So I'm going C by submission. Next fight, we have Ailin Cutelaba versus Ivan Erslan at light heavyweight. Cutelaba is 30 years old, 17-10-1, 1-4 in his last 5 fights. He's 6'1" with a 75-inch reach and a 54% finish rate. He's a -125 favorite. Erslan is 32 years old, 14-3, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He's 6'3" with a 75-inch reach, a 65% finish rate, and he's a +105 underdog. Cutelaba is such a tough fighter to know what to expect. He brawls in all of his fights, but he doesn't have the best chin. He has power in his hands, and he can catch anyone with a wild shot. But I'm going to take a shot in the dark here and go with the underdog, Erslan, by TKO here. Cutelaba just leaves himself way too open to be hit, and I think it's just the odds are just way too high for me that he gets clipped at some point. Next fight, we have Ziam versus Frevola at lightweight. Ziam is 27 years old, 15-4, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He's 6'1" with a 75-inch reach and a 47% finish rate. He's a +105 underdog. Vola is 34 years old, 11-4-1, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He's 5'9" with a 71-inch reach, 44% finish rate, and is a -125 favorite. I think Ziam is going to give Frevola some trouble early in this fight with the 4-inch reach advantage he has. And he also likes to fight at range, so I think it's going to take Frevola a little bit to get used to the distance and how to close the distance on Ziam. But I do think his lack of power isn't going to stop Frevola from getting through those long-range weapons. So, and I also think that Ziam can be a bit chinny at times, so I'm going to go with Frevola by TKO. Next fight, we have Morgan Charriere versus Gabriel Miranda, featherweight. Charriere is 28 years old, 19-10-1, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He's 5'8" with a 69-inch reach, 47% finish rate, and he's a -550 favorite. Miranda's 34 years old, 17-6, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He's 5'11" with a 71-inch reach, 74% finish rate, and he's a +400 underdog. In this fight, I think Charriere is a very good technical striker. I think he'll have a speed advantage and will be the faster fighter. I think he's going to come out with something to prove after being on the wrong side of a decision in his last fight. I actually thought he was robbed watching the fight live. At the end of the day, it's still a fist fight and anything can happen, but ultimately, I'm going Charriere by a TKO. Next fight, we have Kevin Jousset versus Bryan battle at welterweight. Jousset is 31 years old, 10-2, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He's 6'2" with a 75-inch reach, 50% finish rate, and he's a +125 underdog. Bryan battles 30 years old, 11-2-1, 3-1-1 in his last 5 fights. He's 6'1" with a 77-inch reach and a 69% finish rate. He's a -150 favorite. In this fight, I think this will be a very competitive fight. I see this one playing out on the feet. Both guys like to strike at range. I think Battle has a little bit more power, and his style is suited for striking at range. He's a longer fighter as well. So ultimately, I'm going to go Bryan Battle by decision. Next fight, we have William Gomis versus Joanderson at featherweight. Gomis is 27 years old, 13-2, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He's 6 feet with a 73-inch reach, 53% finish rate, and he's a plus 210 underdog. Brito is 29 years old, 17, 3-1, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He's 5'8" with a 72-inch reach, 71% finish rate, and he's a minus 260 favorite. I think this fight will be fun. Gomis is a very technical striker on the feet. He has all the skills. He does like to fight at range. I think Brito will have a grappling advantage, and Brito also has some power in his hands. I do think Gomis can be tough to hit on the feet, but Brito just ultimately implements the grappling and wins a very close fight, in my opinion, and I'm going Brito by decision. Then we come to the co-main event, Nassourdine Imavov versus Brendan Allen at middleweight. Imavov is 28 years old, 14-4, 3-1-1 in his last 5 fights. He's 6'3" with a 75-inch reach, 56% finish rate, and he's the minus 210 favorite. Allen is 28 years old, 24-5, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He's 6'2" with a 75-inch reach, 66% finish rate, and he's a plus 175 underdog. I think this fight will be very competitive. I think he's a slightly more technical striker. Allen, in my opinion, will need to implement the grappling if he wants to win this fight. I think Allen will have a slight grappling advantage here, but I also think Imavov can hold his own in the grappling sequences once they do take place. But ultimately, I just like Imavov's distance management, and I like his technical striking on the feet, so I'm gonna go with Nassourdine by decision. Then we come to the main event. We have Moicano versus Benoit Saint-Denis. He's 35 years old, 19-5-1, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He's 5'11" with a 72-inch reach and a 44% finish rate. He's a plus 220 underdog. Saint-Denis is 28 years old, 13-2, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He's 5'11" with a 73-inch reach and an 87% finish rate. He's a minus 270 favorite. I think BSD will definitely have a power advantage. Moicano doesn't move his head much on the feet. I do think Moicano will have a slight grappling advantage, and in that I mean in the submissions. I do think the BJJ will be comparative to one another, and I think his advantage will be slight, in my opinion. I think BSD has enough to hold his own with Moicano if the fight does go to the ground. Moicano is very tough and he takes a lot of damage, but I think it's going to be a bit too much. Even though Moicano is a dog, he walks forward through a lot of shots, but I think this one ultimately goes with Benoit Saint-Denis by TKO. So that's it, guys. Let me know what you think. If you like the content, like the video, and until next time.